Why is this disgrace present? My mother's voice, Helena Blackwood, cuts through the lavish ballroom with the precision and coldness of a knife meant to injure. The low murmur in the crowd falters. Champagne flutes hover motionless in the air as everyone's gaze is drawn by the sheer force of her contempt. My younger sister, Celeste Blackwood, folds her arms and lets a sly smirk dance on her lips. "You're not on the guest list," she proclaims, her words amplified for all to hear, setting the rumors in motion. My father, Edward Blackwood, remains unmoved. Without so much as glancing at me, he takes a measured sip of his drink, his rigid stance making it clear he wishes I were invisible. This icy reception is exactly what I had anticipated. I press forward, the methodical click of my heels striking the marble, each step echoing, a slow, defiant signal resonating through the space. The Monarch Heights Hotel, a sanctuary of extravagance and privilege, was built for people like them, not for someone forgotten or made invisible like me. Yet tonight that changes. I am not simply present. I claim this moment entirely. A wave of tension moves across the gathering, detectable in the subtle movements of guests adjusting their champagne glasses. Their interest intensifies as they sense the charged air even before they notice me. That's when it happens. I notice the first genuine fracture in their flawless surface, not from my mother, Helena Blackwood, nor from my younger sister, Celeste Blackwood, but from Marcus Livingston, my sister's fiancé. His cocky smile disappears suddenly, and his posture stiffens. I notice his fingers flicker, and his throat constrict as he swallows hard. He looks as if he's glimpsed an apparition. I find this fascinating and tip my head slightly, allowing the heavy silence to linger, making everyone confront the burden of what's ahead. Then, keeping my composure, I deliver the phrase that spreads anxiety across the entire room. "Do you really not know who I am?" The change is swift. The murmurs swell, and satin gowns slide against one another. Polished floors, fragments of conversation, moments that break apart. I notice my mother, Helena Blackwood, clenching her champagne glass a little harder. I catch my younger sister, Celeste Blackwood, her self-assuredness wavering for the briefest instant. I know they're waiting for me to shrink away, to collapse back into the powerless woman they once discarded. Instead, I offer a measured, slow smile, sharp as a blade slipping smoothly from its scabbard. My name is Vivian Blackwood, and in that instant, their flawless facade begins to unravel. The memory of that night's chill is vivid. The cold seeped into my bones, my hands grew numb, and my skin burned from it. The air wasn't the sole culprit. It was also the burden of disownment, the staggering awareness that nobody stood beside me. My father, Edward Blackwood, stood in the doorway of Blackwood Manor with his arms folded, his expression impossible to read. Behind him, my mother, Helena Blackwood, didn't spare me so much as a glance. She calmly drank her wine, her gaze fixed beyond me, as if I had already vanished. And then, there was Celeste Blackwood, my younger sister, the golden child, standing just behind them, bundled in comfort and smirking as if this was simply a slight hassle. "You're a burden," Helena Blackwood, my mother had said, her voice icy and uncaring. "A waste of time, a waste of money." I wanted to shout, to resist, to beg, but I already knew where this was headed. "No excuses, Vivian," my father, Edward Blackwood, interrupted, his tone as biting as the icy night. "You're an adult. Handle it yourself." And then the door closed. Just like that, I was erased. I recall staring at that closed door, hoping it would open, waiting for someone to come after me. But nobody did. The wind shrieked through the vacant streets as I clung to my coat, pulling it tighter around myself. Everything I had was reduced to the $22.40 in my pocket and the clothes I wore. For 4 nights, I found sleep wherever I could. Behind Dottie's diner, I huddled against the dumpsters, relying on the faint warmth from the kitchen vents just to keep hypothermia at bay. Hunger gnawed relentlessly at my insides, and fatigue weighed down my body to the point of exhaustion, but I was determined not to give in. However, on the fifth morning, someone discovered me. Rita Dawson, the proprietor of Dottie's Diner, stood above me with her arms crossed, her keen gaze sizing me up. "If you're going to loiter, you might as well make yourself useful," she declared, flinging a broom toward where I sat. That moment became my opportunity. I scrubbed the floors, washed countless dishes, and put in back-to-back shifts without uttering a complaint. By the end of the following month, Rita permitted me to sleep on an old cot in the rear storage area. By the start of the following year, I had managed to save enough to enroll at Stonehill City College. I refused to give up. I couldn't stop myself. At 21, I was awarded a full scholarship to a top business program. At 24, I started as an intern at a rapidly growing company called VitalInQ Medical Innovations, and at 29, I founded NutriVital Sciences, a medical nutrition company designed to shake up the industry and earn me a fortune. The Blackwoods were left in the dark about all of it because I believed they didn't merit the knowledge. Naturally, my younger sister bounces back before anyone else, her chin rising and that constant smirk curling on her mouth. Celeste, always the golden child, radiates confidence in her role and absolute faith in her own immunity from consequences. She emits a sharp, derisive laugh that carries to the nearby attendees. "God, I really couldn't resist turning up and making a fool of myself, could I?" I jeer, my tone laced with derision, still hungry for recognition. "I notice you couldn't even last at Stonehill City College, and now you're attempting, what, exactly, ruining my wedding for attention?" I respond with a measured, deliberate grin, gently angling my head. "Oh, do tell me. Is that the story they spun for you?" For the first time, I notice a subtle flicker of doubt in her eyes. I reach into my evening bag and retrieve a carefully folded piece of paper. Taking my time, I slowly unfold it, allowing the tension in the air to build as I watch the gravity of this moment settle over her. Then I raise the document just enough for Marcus Livingston, standing rigidly at her side, to see it. His gaze scans the sheet, and instantly the color drains from Marcus's face. He asks, in a low voice laced with an underlying threat, "What is this?" Celeste shifts beside him, her fingers tightening. "Oh, please, she's just inventing things," my younger sister protests. "It's your academic transcript," I reply with measured calm, "the same one that reveals you never actually completed medical school." A faint gasp stirs among the guests who are close enough to hear. Marcus doesn't budge. Instead, he remains fixated on the paper, as if struggling to believe what he's seeing. His jaw sets, and his hands tense reflexively at his sides. I can tell he understands this is genuine. Celeste's gaze darts between us, anxiety growing on her face. Then instead of showing nerves, she lets out an exaggerated, theatrical laugh, throwing her head back as though it's the most comical thing she has ever witnessed. "This is embarrassing," she says with a scoff, shaking her head. "You walk in waving some phony document, thinking you'll destroy my wedding." Honestly, maybe I should take it as a compliment. Clearly, she's just envious. Just look at me. Look at my world. I have it all. A successful fiancé, a devoted family, a future most people can only fantasize about. I give no response. I simply move a bit closer, my tone even and steady. "If I matter so little," I murmur, "why do you seem so unsettled?" Her self-satisfied smile falters, only for a heartbeat, but I catch it, and Marcus notices too, his grasp tightening around her. "Document Celeste," he says in a slow, frigid tone. "Tell me this isn't true." My younger sister scoffs once more, but this time there's a harsh brittleness in her voice that hadn't been there before. "Oh my God, Marcus, you actually believe her? You know what she's like. She distorts everything. She lies just to make herself seem important. Lies? I reply smoothly, my voice calm. That's interesting, because I have more to add. The mood in the room suddenly shifts, growing tense and crackling with energy. Helena steps forward now, always the tactician, always the cold, shrewd matriarch. Enough of this foolishness, she declares, her tone cutting. I will not let you sabotage your sister's wedding with these ridiculous claims. I turn toward her, locking eyes with her directly. Oh, Helena, I begin, showing the faintest hint of a smile. You, of all people, should know that I never make claims. I bring facts. Then I drop the next revelation. Why don't we discuss the financial fraud? The case I had built against the Blackwood Family Health Center was met with heavy silence. Edward Blackwood, my father, the very man who had once stood in the doorway all those years back and cast me out into the cold, set his jaw, his face tightening. A faint flicker ran across his features as I reached into my purse once more, this time drawing out a slim black USB stick. I fidget with the drive in my hand, keeping my gaze on him while I watch the dawning of understanding creep over his face. I have bank statements, I go on, my tone airy and unconcerned, including emails, legal contracts. There's evidence proving your so-called family operation has been perpetrating insurance scams for years. Celeste Blackwood's breath hitches sharply in response. Helena Blackwood's grip around her champagne stem becomes visibly firmer. Edward turns ashen, and the low drone of voices among the onlookers quickly rises in volume as whispers shift to hushed exclamations. That's absurd, Edward manages to say at last, keeping his low tone steady. You don't know what you're implying. I draw in closer, having the space between us, and lower my voice so only he will catch my next words. You didn't believe anyone would discover the truth, did you? He reacts suddenly. For the first time since I've known him, my father shows genuine fear. Dr. Ethan Abrams steps closer, his cheeks flushed with anger, and his hands balled tightly at his sides. The usually poised and dignified hospital director now appears like a man who's just realized he has been thoroughly duped. His words slice through the shocked silence, sharp as a blade. You assured me she held her degree, he says, pinning my father, Edward Blackwood, with a searing glare. You personally vouched for her. You promised her qualifications were authentic. My mother, Helena Blackwood, ever the skilled deceiver, squared her shoulders and tried to produce a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Dr. Abrams, there's simply been a misunderstanding, my mother says, her tone light, regardless of what my daughter may or may not have done. She never graduated, I state, my voice calm and unwavering. She never even came close. Marcus Livingston hasn't budged, still fixated on the document before him. His grip tightens until his knuckles pale, his breath coming in ragged spurts, and at last he releases a slow, deliberate exhale before facing my younger sister, his tone alarmingly steady as he says, "Assure me this isn't real." My younger sister doesn't respond, and my fiancé's expression grows colder while his hand clenches around the engagement ring he wears. I stood up for you, he murmurs, his words little more than a hoarse whisper. I put my faith in you, and all along you were only... He breaks off with a sharp, mirthless chuckle, and then, without saying anything further, he rips the ring from his finger and flings it down at my feet. The echo of metal hitting the marble floor fills the space, impossibly loud. My younger sister lets out a desperate cry and reaches for his arm, but my fiancé recoils, a look of revulsion contorting his face. Don't, he snaps, his voice choked with deep betrayal. My mother's eyes go wide as she rushes forward, her voice shifting to a pitiful, imploring register, tinged with the expert manipulation she has refined over the years. Marcus, darling, let's be sensible. You and my younger sister truly belong with each other. A couple of missteps can't change that. Marcus shakes his head, his features revealing a look alarmingly close to regret. You don't understand, do you? It's never just one misstep. It's the whole pattern. Every word, every deception, every con, he says to me. He shifts his attention to me, his eyes revealing something impossible to read. She was right, he says. Helena blinks, at a rare loss for words, and for the first time, real desperation flashes in her gaze. But I'm not finished yet. I take a slow, measured breath, letting the gravity linger before I reveal my last, most shocking truth. You've been impersonating me for tax fraud for the past 12 years. The entire space explodes into chaos. My mother lets out a gasp, and my father's complexion drains of color, while the whispers throughout the ballroom swell into stunned commotion. That's a lie, my father growls, his voice trembling. I can't help but grin. I retrieve a second USB drive from my clutch, holding it delicately between two fingers. Since my identity had recently been verified, just imagine the shock I felt discovering that someone had been submitting fake tax returns in my name. Someone who conveniently owns a certain family-run clinic. Dr. Ethan Abrams. Dr. Ethan Abrams pivots abruptly toward his assistant and orders, "Contact the legal department immediately." Edward surges forward, but the security team has already intervened. My words hit him like a massive tidal surge, completely overwhelming him. His calm facade crumbles, and he bellows at me, "You think you're above us?" His tone frantic and unhinged. Locking eyes with him, I tilt my head just a bit. "I don't need to think that," I reply, keeping my tone level and composed. "I'm already certain of it." At that moment, security tightens their hold on his arms, while my mother reels backward, the flawless mask she wears starting to break as true panic finally takes hold. The guests begin to distance themselves, their expressions now full of apprehension. Nothing remains but gossip and disapproval. The once esteemed Blackwood family is now spoken of only as a warning, and my younger sister is collapsed, sobbing, her flawless bridal gown spilled in tatters around her. I take a final glance at the destruction I've caused, then walk away from them. The entire ballroom has erupted into pandemonium. Security acts quickly, their commands quiet yet unyielding as they guide my father and my mother from the scene, their complaints smothered beneath the whispers and gazes of the crowd. The proud, once formidable Blackwoods have been brought low. Dr. Ethan Abrams is already on the phone, making sure my father's medical credentials are stripped, and the tax authorities will soon follow. Their dynasty unravels, and their fortune, along with their power, vanishes. Meanwhile, my younger sister is still crouched on the floor, her cries silenced by the immaculate marble beneath her. The engagement ring my fiancé hurled by her feet flashes under the chandelier, untouched and forsaken, much like the way she once left me. Years ago, I allowed myself one final glance, not out of longing or sorrow, but so I could etch that moment into my memory. The instant those who cast me aside finally confronted the consequences of their actions. My younger sister's cheeks were streaked with tears as she looked up at me, her shaky plea betraying her desperation. "Vivienne, please." That was once the voice I might have longed for, words I would have clung to, but the version of myself who craved their acceptance and affection had perished in the frost that settled when they closed that door. I angled my head in thought, then offered a slight, almost wistful smile. "You never truly cared about me," I whispered, my tone gentle but resolute, "and now I feel nothing for you." Her mouth began to quiver as another sob threatened to escape, but I didn't stay to witness it. Instead, I turned and stepped across the shards of the world we once kept immaculate, and kept walking until I was outside. The air feels sharp and new, like the first inhale after fleeing a blazing house. The city murmurs in the background, oblivious to the ruin I've just escaped, and Leo Chandler stands waiting. For a moment he remains silent, simply watching me with those thoughtful, deep eyes. He doesn't bother with questions about how I am. He already understands. Instead, he arches an eyebrow, his mouth quirking in the tiniest of smiles. So, cake? I blink in surprise, and then honest, uninhibited laughter bursts from me, the kind I haven't experienced in years. Yes, I reply, my smile wide. Let's get cake. Because it was never about vengeance, but about breaking free, and at last, I am truly, unmistakably free.